Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a massive 230-part journey to literally deconstruct the digital machine and, frankly, restore the magic of human authorship. We hear so much utopian marketing about the future of the internet, decentralized networks, and AI replacing human effort, but scratch that. We're stripping all of that away today. Instead, we're going to look at the hard forensic evidence of what it actually takes to reclaim your digital sovereignty. Think of this explainer as our cognitive map. We'll be moving through 5 distinct phases. Phase 1 is the genesis of authorship. Then Phase 2 covers the miasma and causal collapse. After that, we hit Phase 3, looking at the FPU wall and the ALU surveyor. Phase 4 gets into the breach and sovereign compute. And finally, we arrive at Phase 5, the Agentic Publishing house. So we're going to descend from the abstract history of human intent, drop all the way down to the bare physical silicon of our hardware, and then ascend right back up to global digital sovereignty. So, starting with Phase 1, the genesis of authorship. To really understand where we're going on this forensic descent, we first have to completely dismantle the romantic myth of the lone inventor. It is absolutely fascinating to see how authorship actually evolved. It started way back with the biological rhythm of the spoken word in antiquity. From there, it moved into highly structured physical systems that were literally designed to preserve truth over time. We're talking about things like the mechanical axons in the 6th century BC, or the medieval Passia system, where legal texts were shattered into chunks so monks could copy them in parallel. The sources even trace this unbroken chain all the way to Paul Revere's Midnight Ride in 1775. By writing his mission down on a physical substrate, Revere created a permanent public record of his physical effort. He effectively anchored his intent right into reality. And all of this historical context anchors a totally foundational concept in this research, which is the record of sweat. Authorship isn't just, a vibe or some fleeting thought pulled out of thin air. No way. It is a permanent, undeniable, causal chain of human effort. It's the tangible, bit-perfect manifestation of biological labor anchored directly into physical reality. And honestly, in an age of synthetic, AI-generated abundance, this human record of sweat is the absolute baseline of truth. Moving right along to Phase 2, miasma and causal collapse. Because as we jump forward to the modern era, that vital human record of sweat gets violently interrupted by what the sources call the metadata miasma. We have experienced a massive causal collapse, and it's illustrated perfectly by the 2020 DDX credit crisis. So during that chaotic jump from physical media to digital streaming, analysts actually discovered roughly 2.7 million missing digital media attributions. Think about that. 2.7 million. It proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that our digital architecture is actively shredding human provenance. The sources describe this whole thing as an enclosure of meaning, where these incredibly opaque AI algorithms are basically grinding our authentic records into a fine dust of synthetic noise. It's dragging us right into a dead internet spiral of context collapse. Now, the actual mechanics of this destruction happen through something called the wood chipper effect. Here's how it works. When an AI ingests exact source data, like a copyrighted book or human-written code, it forces those continuous human vectors through a tokenization bottleneck. The hardware basically acts like a giant blender, using mathematical approximations. And once your intent goes through that blender, your original identity and chain of title are permanently destroyed. It's like a smoothie. You can never reverse engineer that smoothie back into the exact distinct fruits it came from. Which brings us to Phase 3, FPU wall and ALU surveyor. To really understand why this destructive blending happens, we have to descend from the software layer and look straight down at the bare metal, the silicon itself. I just want to let this number sink in for a second. 80 to 90%. Up to 90% of modern AI compute cycles are fundamentally just hardware-level approximations. They are absolutely not exact mathematical truths. When these massive language models do their heavy lifting, they're fundamentally just guessing the nearest answer that's hardwired into the silicon by the manufacturer. Inside your computer, this creates a massive hardware divide. On one hand, you have the FPU, or the floating point unit. Think of this guy as the gambler. It's fast, sure, but it uses secret proprietary seed tables to rapidly guess answers. It's essentially just throwing darts at a dartboard. Now, on the exact opposite side, you have the ALU, the arithmetic logic unit. This is the surveyor. The ALU deals strictly in 100% exact, universally deterministic truths. 1 + 1 = exactly 2 everywhere on Earth forever. But the crazy thing is, right now, modern AI relies almost entirely on the messy guessing of the FPU gambler. So, to bypass that gambler, we have to recognize a highly poetic but completely literal reality. As the source material states, we are quite literally tricking rocks into thinking using lightning and text. There's no magic ghost inside artificial intelligence. We are the sole source of meaning. To stop that wood chipper effect, we've got to compile our associative imagination into strict physical action, using what the texts call the semiotic bridge. And that bridge is built entirely out of strictly formatted deterministic text mapped directly to the exact ALU surveyor. All right, on to phase 4, breach and sovereign compute. As we begin our ascent back up from the metal, armed with the exactness of that ALU, we slam right into a massive societal crisis. The sources warn us that the modern great enclosure of cloud AI isn't just some harmless technological shift. It is actually a sociological regression. They map it back to historical treaties, calling it the 1689 breach. The centralized tech giants are essentially dragging us back to pre-constitutional power structures through a mechanism called interface inversion, which is basically where the tool suddenly starts managing the user. They sit directly between you and your execution. You literally don't own your digital capabilities anymore. You've become a digital tenant, merely renting your right to think from a digital landlord. This fundamentally shifts our macro network topology. On one side, you have the royalist cloud empire. Picture a high-pressure pipe designed to just suck all your data to a central tank where it is continuously taxed and metered. On the flip side is the classical, decentralized, constituent-owned forest. In the forest, you aren't a caged squirrel being fed by a landlord. You are a sovereign squirrel who hides your own digital nuts locally, exactly where you need them. The infrastructure supports you, for sure, but you ultimately own your digital survival. And that leads us to phase 5, the Agentic Publishing House. This is the master realization. It's the ultimate goal of the entire 230-part curriculum. It's all about restoring you as the chief director of your own digital destiny. The absolutely crucial point here is that you don't have to be a passive user anymore. By acting as a sovereign pilot, you can command specialized AI swarms using what's called agentic swarm orchestration to generate massive amounts of work. The source has actually documented a test where a swarm generated 55.5 million tokens of verifiable metabolic flux. Basically, that's mathematically proven digital labor. And because it was routed exclusively through that exact ALU hardware we talked about, it proved state-invariant inheritance. To put that in plain English, the core human instruction never mutated or corrupted. It remained a flawless, bit-perfect chain of your original intent. To actually pull this off, developers are using something called chopsticks engineering. You basically bypass the massive cloud giants completely by taking 3 highly effective, lightweight steps. First, you secure the physical substrate, meaning you actually own the hardware sitting right on your desk. Second, you publish your unalterable intent, which creates a bit-perfect mathematical record. And third, you execute locally as the sovereign pilot. You permanently bind your abstract mission directly to the rigid hardware without ever asking a cloud API for permission. It's a real game changer. Well, we've covered a massive journey today, descending from the genesis of the spoken word all the way down to the guessing game of silicon chips and ascending right back up to the architecture of true digital sovereignty. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought about your digital legacy. You know, the blueprint for freedom is already written into the math, and the tools are literally waiting for you. But the choice to actually take the ride, that is entirely up to you. Will you remain a subject of centralized cloud compute? Or will you step up to become the sovereign pilot of your own digital substrate? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the architecture around you, and I'll catch you next time.